Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to dive into something that's going to completely transform the way you learn English. I'm talking about a technique that doesn't cost you a single rupee, doesn't require a partner, and you can practice it anywhere, anytime. This is the secret that fluent speakers don't usually talk about, but it's exactly what they did to reach that level. Think about this for a moment. Right now, as you're listening to me, what language is running through your mind? When you're alone, walking down the street, cooking food, or lying in bed before sleep, what language are you thinking in? For most of you, it's probably your mother tongue, right? And that's completely natural. But here's the game-changing question. What if you could switch that internal language to English? This is what we call thinking in English, or talking in your brain in English. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. This is the single most powerful technique that took my English from average to absolutely fluent. When I discovered this method, everything changed. My confidence skyrocketed, my vocabulary expanded naturally, and speaking became effortless instead of stressful. So let me explain exactly what this means. Thinking in English means that your internal dialogue, that constant conversation you have with yourself throughout the day, happens in English instead of your native language. Most people translate in their heads. They think of a sentence in Urdu or Hindi, then try to convert it to English, and by the time they do that, the moment has passed, the conversation has moved on, and they feel left behind. But when you think directly in English, there's no translation barrier. The words just flow. Now, you might be wondering, how is this even possible? I've been speaking my language my whole life. How can I just switch my brain to English? And that's a valid question. The truth is, your brain is incredibly adaptable. It's like a muscle that gets stronger with the right exercise. When you were a baby, you didn't know any language. Your brain learned your mother tongue through constant exposure and practice. The same principle applies here. Let me share something personal with you. When I started this journey, I felt ridiculous. I remember standing in front of the mirror, trying to think in English, and my brain would go completely blank. I'd think, what should I say? And even that question came in my native language. I felt like I was forcing something unnatural. But I kept pushing, and within a few weeks, something magical happened. English thoughts started appearing naturally, without effort, without translation. The beauty of this technique is that it works while you're doing absolutely anything. You're making tea? Describe the process in your mind in English. You're watching people walk by? Create stories about them in English. You're feeling angry, happy, or sad? Express those emotions to yourself in English. Your brain becomes a 24/7 English practice zone, and nobody even knows you're doing it. Here's why this is so powerful. When you speak out loud, you're limited by opportunities. You need someone to talk to, you need the right environment, you need courage to overcome the fear of making mistakes. But thinking in English has none of these limitations. You can do it while traveling in a bus, waiting in line, exercising, anywhere. It's completely private, completely safe, and completely free. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine you're sitting at home and you're feeling hungry. In your mind, instead of thinking in your native language, you'd think something like, I'm really hungry right now. I should check what's in the kitchen. Maybe I'll make some pasta, or perhaps I'll just order something. I'm too tired to cook today. You see what happened there? That entire thought process happened in English. You described your feeling, considered your options, and made a decision, all in English. And here's the incredible part. When you do this consistently, your brain starts building English pathways. It's like creating shortcuts in your mind. The more you use these pathways, the stronger they become. Eventually, English becomes just as natural as your mother tongue. You stop thinking about grammar rules. You stop worrying about whether you're saying things correctly, because your brain has internalized the patterns through constant exposure. Now let me address the biggest challenge people face with this technique. You'll start, and within 2 minutes, you'll catch yourself thinking in your native language again. This is completely normal. This will happen hundreds of times in the beginning. The key is not to get frustrated. The moment you realize you've switched back, gently bring your mind back to English. Think of it like meditation. Your mind wanders, you bring it back. It wanders again, you bring it back again. I want you to understand something crucial. This isn't about perfection. When you're thinking in English, you'll make mistakes. You'll use wrong grammar, wrong vocabulary, wrong sentence structures. And that's absolutely fine. Nobody is listening. Nobody is judging. This is your private practice space where mistakes are not just allowed, they're necessary for growth. Let me tell you about the compound effect of this practice. If you think in English for just 30 minutes a day, that's 3.5 hours a week, 15 hours a month, 180 hours a year. That's more practice than most expensive English courses provide. And the best part? You're not just memorizing, you're actually using the language in real contexts, with real emotions, about real situations in your life. Here's another powerful benefit. When you think in English regularly, you start noticing gaps in your vocabulary. You'll be thinking about something and realize you don't know the English word for it. This creates what I call active curiosity. You become motivated to learn that word because you actually need it, not because it's on some list in a textbook. And when you learn words this way, they stick in your memory much better. I'll give you a personal example. I remember I was thinking in English one day about my childhood, and I wanted to describe my grandmother's house, but I didn't know how to say that the house had a particular smell. So I looked it up and learned words like nostalgic, musty, fragrant. These words became part of my vocabulary immediately because they filled a real need in my thinking process. Now let's talk about levels. When you're a beginner, your thoughts in English will be very simple. I am hungry. I want water. I like this song. That's perfectly fine. Start where you are. As you progress, your thoughts become more complex. You start forming longer sentences, using different tenses, expressing subtle emotions. Eventually, you'll be thinking in English at the same level of complexity as your native language. One technique that really accelerated my progress was commenting on everything I saw. I'd look at a tree and think, that tree looks really old. I wonder how many years it's been standing there. The leaves are so green. It must have rained recently. I'd see a person and think, she looks happy. Maybe she got good news today. I like her jacket. I should get something similar. This constant commentary trains your brain to formulate thoughts quickly in English. Another powerful exercise is having imaginary conversations. Imagine you're talking to your friend, your teacher, your boss, a stranger. Create both sides of the conversation in your mind in English. This prepares you for real conversations. When the actual situation comes, your brain has already practiced similar scenarios hundreds of times, so you're ready. Let me address something important. Some people worry that thinking in English will make them forget their native language or disconnect them from their culture. This is a misconception. Your mother tongue is deeply rooted in your brain. Adding another language doesn't remove the first one. In fact, research shows that multilingual people have better cognitive abilities. You're not losing anything, you're only gaining. Here's a secret that will make this journey easier. Don't pressure yourself to think in English all day from day one. Start small. Maybe commit to thinking in English for 5 minutes a day. Choose a specific activity, like brushing your teeth or having breakfast, and during that time, consciously think in English. As it becomes easier, gradually increase the duration. I also want to talk about the emotional aspect of this practice. Language isn't just words and grammar. It's deeply connected to how we feel and express ourselves. When you start thinking in English, you're not just learning a language, you're expanding your identity. You're becoming someone who can operate in multiple linguistic worlds. That's powerful. That builds confidence not just in English, but in life. One thing I noticed in my journey is that thinking in English made me more observant. Because I was constantly trying to describe things in my mind, I started noticing details I'd never paid attention to before. The way light falls on a wall, the expression on someone's face, the sound of rain on different surfaces. This made my English richer, but it also made my life richer. Let's talk about dealing with frustration. There will be days when your brain feels tired, when English feels hard, when you just want to give up and go back to the comfort of your native language. This is normal. Progress isn't linear. Some days you'll feel like a fluent speaker. Other days you'll struggle with basic sentences. The key is consistency, not perfection. Show up every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Here's something that helped me tremendously. I started keeping a small notebook, and whenever I encountered a situation where I didn't know how to express something in English, I'd write it down. Later, I'd research it, learn the proper expression, and then practice using it in my thoughts. This turned every challenge into a learning opportunity. I want you to understand the psychology behind this technique. Your subconscious mind is always listening to your conscious thoughts. When you repeatedly think in English, you're programming your subconscious to recognize English as a natural language for you. This is why, after consistent practice, you'll start dreaming in English. Yes, dreaming in English. That's when you know the language has truly become part of you. Another benefit I haven't mentioned yet is cultural understanding. Language and culture are deeply connected. When you think in English, you start understanding English idioms, expressions, and ways of thinking. You begin to see the world through a different lens. This doesn't mean you abandon your own culture. It means you become culturally flexible, able to navigate different worlds. Let me give you some practical scenarios to practice. When you wake up in the morning, describe your feelings in English. Are you tired, energized, anxious, excited? When you're eating, describe the taste, texture, temperature of your food. When you're with people, create mental descriptions of them, their appearance, their behavior. Imagine what they might be thinking. When you're alone, have debates with yourself in English about topics you care about. The transformation this brings to your speaking ability is remarkable. When you're used to thinking in English, speaking becomes just thinking out loud. There's no mental gymnastics, no translation, no awkward pauses while you construct sentences. Words flow because they're already flowing in your mind. This is the difference between struggling speakers and fluent speakers. I remember the first time I had a completely natural conversation in English without any internal translation. I was talking to someone, and we were discussing something interesting, and the English just came out effortlessly. After the conversation, I realized I hadn't thought about grammar even once. I hadn't worried about mistakes. I was just communicating, just like I would in my native language. That moment made me realize how far I'd come. Now, let's address a common question. Should you correct yourself when you make mistakes while thinking in English? My answer is, be gentle with yourself. If you notice a mistake and you know the correct form, sure, think it again correctly. But don't be so harsh that you lose the flow of your thoughts. The goal is fluency, and fluency comes from practice, not from perfect practice. Perfection comes later, naturally, through exposure and usage. One advanced technique is to think in different registers of English. Sometimes think casually, like you're talking to a friend. Other times think formally, like you're giving a presentation. This flexibility makes you a versatile English speaker. You can adjust your language based on the situation which is a sign of true fluency. Here's something beautiful about this journey. Every single one of you listening to this can become fluent in English. It's not about intelligence. It's not about having the right opportunities. It's about consistent practice. And thinking in English gives you the opportunity to practice constantly. You're never without your practice partner because your practice partner is you. I want to end with this. The journey of learning English through thinking in your brain is not just about language. It's about proving to yourself that you can change, you can grow, you can achieve something that once seemed impossible. Every day you choose to think in English, you're choosing growth. You're choosing to step outside your comfort zone. You're choosing to become a better version of yourself. So start today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Right after this video ends, start narrating your life in English in your mind. Make it a game. Make it fun. Make it a part of who you are. And I promise you, if you do this consistently, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, you won't recognize your English level. You'll be that person others look at and think, wow, they speak English so well. This is your journey. This is your transformation. And it starts in the most powerful place, your mind. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll take your English to even greater heights.